Well, thank you for joining me again, Clay. Obviously, it's great to speak to you again. We had a very different conversation last time about Season of Discovery.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you again for making the time for us. We're excited to talk all things Cataclysm Classic.
Me too.
Mhm.
And Linny, first time meeting you, but nice to meet you. How are you?
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm good. I'm good. This is Miss Mojo Jojo. She's going to hang out here too, apparently.
Everyone's welcome to listen to my
Excellent.
Cataclysm rants. Do you want to just introduce yourselves, let everyone know what it is that you do for Blizzard?
Sure. So, hi everybody. I'm Clay Stone, Associate Production Director of the World of Warcraft Classic team. Yeah, excited to be here.
Hey, I'm Lenny Cook-Samaline. I am a game producer for World of Warcraft Classic team.
Cool. And yeah, I'm Scott. I've played WoW since 2004 and many MMOs before and in between, and started creating content around sort of Classic 2019. And very excited for this period of Classic. Wrath, Cata, MOP, which I'm sorry, but you're going to get me mentioned during this, obviously. And potentially even WOD, which I'm not going to talk about today. I won't keep you too long. Like the questions are fairly straightforward, hopefully, and I'm hoping that we can get lots of information out. But just to sort of break the ice a little bit and start right at the beginning. So in terms of Cata's 5 days away at the time of recording, what was the thought process around like such an increased cadence, and is it something that we expect to see? Assuming, like I said, with Mr. Pandaria, like if we do see Mr. Pandaria, is it something that's likely to continue, or is this like a one-off, want to get through Cataclysm for whatever reason, and why? How has that come about?
Yeah, so we announced, about a month ago, what the patch cadence was going to be like. Something that we committed to upfront, way back when we announced Cataclysm at BlizzCon, was that increased speed of the patch cadence. If you look at every other expansion that we've done so far, they have not matched one-to-one the original experience. For Cataclysm, we feel like in the community discussions that we've had, the expansion as a whole has been rather unfavorably shaded by the length of that final phase in Dragon Soul, which lasted a little over 10 months, which frankly was just too long for the vast majority of the player base. And that's just simply not something that we want to repeat. When we think about contemporary players and the players who are playing our game today, even if they played way back in the day, 2014, 14 years ago, 2010, when Cataclysm originally launched, they have figured the game out. They are incredibly skilled, communicate incredibly well, and can rush through content super fast. Obviously, that's not the entirety of the player base, but we do recognize that a contemporary player, they want to move along at a speedier cadence. So that's what we're trying to accomplish with Cataclysm Classic. Now, that being said, we would never want to get into a spot where we are taking something away that players are having fun with. And if it turns out that Firelands is not lasting long enough, everybody's having a blast in it, there's no reason why we should rush to Dragon Soul. So we're going to take things as they go. We'll adjust if necessary. I love that we put that patch cadence out there so players could talk about it, could respond to it. We could hear their feedback on it. But it's not set in stone if we have to make changes. And then when we think to the future, if we were ever to do something like a MOP Classic, we recognize that it's a very beloved expansion. And again, going back to my note about Firelands or even our first raids here for Cataclysm, if players are having fun, we want to let things breathe. There's no reason why we should rush through something if players are having fun with it. Lenny, was there anything
ultimately, we're all here to have fun. We all have different parts of the expansion that we found most exciting, and we want to make sure everybody has time to just be in those parts.
Okay, that's really interesting, actually. So what we're saying, really, with the patch cadence that we've seen, that's almost like, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but that's almost like we're burning through the content. You guys are like, well, we did say, this is when it's going to launch. Whereas if you start to see, a lot of guilds, let's say a majority of guilds have not cleared the content, it's not like, well, unlucky, Firelands is coming now, or unlucky, Dragon Soul's coming now. So it's like definitely not set in stone. We could potentially have a longer cadence than what it looks like we're going to get at the moment.
Yeah, we wouldn't go any faster. There'd be no way we would go any faster than what we've already announced. And we're fortunate enough to be able to look at the data, see the progression rates, see how many guilds have cleared, and then kind of be able to set a schedule or a roadmap based on that, but also be able to adjust if we need to.
Okay, that's super interesting, because that's going to tie in nicely to a couple of other questions, actually. So with, I know you can't really, like, you never have, like, throughout Classic, which I'm going to say this is a negative, all right, but like in a constructive way. The fact that you're not just going to openly say, yes, MOP Classic's coming, because, like, who knows what's going to be going on in a year's time, 18 months' time, whenever it is. But I feel like if we kind of knew further, and there was a bit of that assurance that, you've got your character, we're not going anywhere, Classic's not going anywhere, your character's going to be fine, it's going to move on. But people, when Cataclysm has always been one of those, oh, do I want to play it, don't I want to play it, it could get those people that want to play MOP on board to get some character investment in before MOP comes. That's not a question. That's just an observation from me. When it's like, when we was playing vanilla, it was like, there's no way they're going to do TBC. When we was playing TBC, there's no way they're going to do RAF. Then obviously everyone was like, there's no way you're going to do cata, and now we're here. So I feel like there is a bit of a loss of getting people getting them playing an expansion they might not necessarily be that excited for, because they know what's coming down the road. The actual question was, with the increased cadence, though, is there any worry that history could repeat itself in the fact that where we get to a point and then it's like, we don't know whether MOP's come in and we do end up sitting in Dragon Soul for an extended period of time, or have you already got plans that, like, that just flat out won't happen? Like, even if it's not MOP, you know that Dragon Soul is going to last a reasonable amount of time without it outstaying its welcome.
We're not going to keep you in Dragon Soul for 10 months. We promise. There's always something cool, new, and exciting happening on the Classic side of things. So definitely there'll be something cool to do. And we're not announcing anything today, but everybody loves Mista Pandaria. It was a really fun expansion overall. And there's also a lot of really cool different places we can go on Classic.
And, I would challenge a little bit about what you said with Cataclysm. Something that has been so wonderful to see as we've gotten closer and closer to Cataclysm has really been this wave of people rediscovering it and rediscovering how many wonderful things there are in this expansion. That whole level 1 to 60 content, which is brand new for Cataclysm, that many people who played 14 years ago never experienced, because they just rolled with their Wrath characters right into the launch content in those 5 new zones. And so as we've gotten closer and closer, we found that people who played it back in the day and people who've never jumped in take the plunge into Cataclysm and really discover just how special it truly is. And it's going to be really exciting when we actually launch that 80 to 85 content. And we're able to unlock that for this whole new set of players to either rediscover or jump into for the first time as well. So I don't know, this wave of excitement and enthusiasm, it's a fantastic time to get to be a part of it, and especially on the Classic team to get to see in the community. And we're excited to jump in with the rest of them as soon as the expansion goes live. It
was really cool. Also, after we announced this at BlizzCon, just the amount of people who reached out and were like, hey, I love Cataclysm. I'm really excited. And people who may not have played some of the earlier versions of Classic, but started playing during Cataclysm, they're like, this is my nostalgia hit. This is my moment. Let's go.
What I've seen is, like, a really good thing to see is a lot of people that just misremembered Cata. Like, where they've been like, I'm not playing Cata, and then they've gone on the beta, or they're playing the pre-patch now, and they're like, oh, I thought it was where the talents changed to where they was MOP, where you had a choice between the tiers. I thought, like, the world being destroyed was a really bad thing, when actually the questing experience from 1 to 60... I'm sorry, I'm not much of a vanilla fanboy. Like, I'm all for the post-Cataclysm zones anyway. Like, the 1 to 60 leveling experience is amazing. And I love the fact that there's people I personally know who was like, there's no way I'm going to play Cata, are now hooked because they tried it and they're like, I don't know what I was remembering, but it weren't this.
And we talk about it all the time, but we're so fortunate to have so many different offerings on Classic now. 2023 was a phenomenal year with the launch of Hardcore and then Season of Discovery. We still have our Classic era realms, and now we're moving into Cataclysm. All of those experiences are still there. You can still go visit the old world in these other experiences that we have that are currently live.
The next one is like, I kind of feel like I know how it works, but I'd really like clarification from yous around the raid system in general. So the thing that's confused a lot of people, even though we can go on the beta, I was raid testing last night till very, very late, and we can kind of get an idea of exactly how it works. For those that are not on the beta and not doing the raid testing, it used to be, in original Cataclysm, it was classed as a flexible raid system. And then when the announcement went out, it was I can't remember what it was initially titled, but then it got changed. It got edited into a boss-based raid lockout system, which is really open to interpretation. Is it just the same Cataclysm raid lockout system that we're used to with a new name?
Yeah, it sure is. It's exactly like the same system that we had initially, and it's what you guys are currently playing on the beta.
Perfect. Just
so definitely miscommunication around that on our end. It
was more like the way we was like, some of us who have played pretty much every expansion, from 2004 to now, was like boss-based raid lockout system kind of sounds a bit like MOP, where you can repeatedly do the raids, but you only get loot from each boss once. It could be the original cata system. Obviously once the beta went up, like the raids went up on the beta, it was very quick to work out exactly, how it was. But yeah, just wanted some clarification, just in case it was different when it goes live to what it is on the beta.
Sometimes you try to describe something a little bit better, and then you realize that the original description actually worked best. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, thank you for asking. I'm glad that we could clarify that.
Well, the problem is, in future expansions past Cata, we then get flexible raids. So it's like, it was called a flexible raid lockout system, then we got flexible raids. So like, it was all confusing anyway, when it really... With us going through, it's thrown a little bit because of the first comment of, the cadence, even though that's, the fastest possible it's going to be, it could slow down. Assuming we was to stick to the cadence that's sort of been set out, is there any sort of thoughts around the amount of loot, like the loot acquisition in general in raids, like, increasing the amount of loot, maybe adding new ways, and I say new ways, maybe even recycling ways like you did with Wrath of the Lich King, with putting in Sidereal Essence and Scourge Stones, taking that sort of thinking to be able to get those bits that you miss from tier 11 when you go into tier 12. Is there any thoughts around generally just being able to get geared up, ready for the next level of progress?
Yeah, so this is something that we hope to put out communication about soon. We've been discussing a lot about things like conquest points, valor points, the caps, the rate of accumulation. I would expect some comms to go out about that pretty quick in advance of launch. So some changes there. I would also say that depending on the pace that we see players progressing through this content and how quickly they're receiving their drops, you could look at what we did towards the end of Wrath in changing some of the drop rates and potentially see us make some changes there as well. That I don't have much more to say on right now, but that is something that we are very cognizant of. There's trickiness there because we have to get it just right. We don't want too many people. We don't want to put it out into the entire player base so everybody gets everything super quick and then has a little bit of fun with it, but then has a whole bunch of time to wait until the end because we want it to feel special. We still want it to feel special and meaningful. So there's certainly some trickiness there involved with tuning it just right, but that is absolutely something that we are looking to do depending on what we see.
Okay, so part of that there, you mentioned a Valor point cap. So have you got anything that you can share on that? Because it did go, I know you'll know, but obviously it went through various iterations in original Cata. It started at 1250, went to 980, and then ended on 1000. Is there any reason, I've done the maths, so I can reel the numbers off to you, but is there any reason to have that artificial cap anyway? Because the one thing I'll say that feels really bad is if you've got the 1k cap and you're getting 150 from each random and you can do that 7 times a week, you're already losing 50 points from doing your 7th random heroic. But then when you start raiding and you're doing raid bosses, if you're not actually getting loot from the bosses, at least in Wrath, even in TBC, you would get emblems, or you would get, justice points now, well, Valor points now. But obviously, if you've capped doing random heroics and you don't get loot from the boss, you're not actually even getting any sort of little token reward that you can then put towards getting loot. Whereas, so that would essentially be the hard cap: 13 bosses, and just 7 random heroics. I kind of don't see the reason for there being a cap at all, especially with this cadence. I don't know what your thoughts are around that.
Yeah, I would say, when it comes to the cap, it's tricky because we want to represent some of the systems as they existed back in the original day of Cataclysm and make adjustments to them that befit the cadence that we are going at, while also allowing players to be able to get the things that they want to get and not have feel bad moments. Our hope is that we're able to assign a new cap that's able to help with that. Granted, when we do put these comms out, we want to hear thoughts and opinions on it. If it's still the case that people would just prefer no cap whatsoever, we want to hear about it as well. It doesn't mean that we are locked into these changes. We can continue to make additional adjustments.
Well, I worked out that the hard, obviously having a hard cap of, say, 4K, obviously that's cool. But, if you literally didn't have a soft cap in place, like that weekly cap, you can only get 1,635. So you would technically be getting about 400-ish, extra than what we would have back in sort of tier 11 of Cata originally, which an extra 400 a week, speeding up the rate that you're going to be able to get your tier and trinkets and stuff like that. I don't know, it seems like a good idea to me. I didn't even want to ask you a question. I just wanted to pitch you that.
I appreciate it. Honestly, I really do appreciate it. This is the kind of feedback and discussion that we want to hear.
Cool. Okay. And then I've got to ask, even though I'm guessing this is going to be part of the comms that goes out, there's 2 things that was announced at BlizzCon. So all the way back at BlizzCon, we've had beta, we've done beta testing raids, battled the blues, which I don't know if in the RBG if either of you were there cheating against our RBG team, but whatever. I won't hold it against you.
I think they're getting wrecked, honestly, because I'm terrible at PvP. I was totally there. You probably
I don't think Lenny was cheating. Just to be clear, I don't think Lenny was cheating.
It wasn't everyone.
Yeah,
not everyone was cheating.
Killed.
Yeah, it was fun. It was still fun. But we've been through all of that, and there's still 2 things from BlizzCon we've had no sort of real information about. That's like Heroic Plus. So it was mentioned about Titan Rune dungeons. I'm guessing Titan Rune don't really fit into Cataclysm, so I'm guessing it would be something else potentially. And the streamlined auction house. We've all got our guesses at what the streamlined auction house could be, but have you got any information on what it actually is and when we can expect it?
Then go ahead and tackle the Titan Rune Dungeons question. Again, Titan Rune Dungeons were something that were really cool to be able to put into Wrath. It also really helped fill this purpose of keeping dungeons relevant throughout Wrath Classic and also just providing a really good catch-up mechanic. So we would love to assess what the needs are in Cataclysm and create something cool that will really match that. And there's so many really cool dungeons in Cataclysm that we would be able to potentially play off of. But again, with Titan Rune Dungeons, those didn't end up showing up until I think the first patch of Wrath. Maybe the same kind of thing. We would look into potentially putting something in a little bit later in our process.
When we think about that, we love to find ways for players to run alts and be able to catch up with those alts using more challenging content. And we love being able for players who, let's say, didn't jump in right at the start of Cataclysm to be able to come in and catch up with their friends and creating solutions for that. That being said, the gear progression of Cataclysm is actually pretty good, especially thanks to the Zandalari heroic dungeons, which come a little bit after launch. So we don't want to put something in that solves a problem that doesn't exist. which could then just potentially create more problems. So nothing more to discuss on for that today, but it is something that we are constantly thinking about. And if players have more ideas for ways that, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great for me to be able to run this alt, run this type of challenging content, and be able to gear up that alt faster that is separate than what already exists in the game, we want to hear about it.
We love ideas and feedback.
Yeah.
The second half of your question was around the auction house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my mind got lost on. So for the auction house, this is something that we're working on. If we go back in Wrath, we made some changes to the way the auction house worked. There were some different sorting options, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What we're talking about now is certainly a little bit more substantial than that sort of thing. Because we're working on it, I don't have anything more to announce on that front. But I would ask, based on the community discussion that we've seen out there, something like the mainline auction house or the modern auction house, is that something you would be interested in coming to the classic space?
Yeah, I mean, I use an add-on that makes the auction house very similar enough to retail or modern WoW. I couldn't obviously say that that's what everybody wants. The one thing I would have liked to have seen personally, which again, you can't please everyone, I'm going to say this and it's going to annoy somebody, is that if the auction house is, especially with the way servers are, like we've got all these one-sided servers, there's, if you start on a predominantly Horde server as Alliance, you literally can't buy anything on the auction house. So actually having the auction house cross-faction would be the one thing that I'd personally like to see done to auction houses, just to help those really one-sided servers. Outside of that, what it looks like, I've got to be honest with you, it's not something... I'm more worried about raids and getting gear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually one of the cool things we've been able to explore a little bit with Cata is just finding spots where there's good quality of life changes we can do. That doesn't change the overall feel of it, but will hopefully just make things a little bit easier for players. Stuff like adding the collections and adding the transmogs in there.
I do want to move on, but just briefly, just about Heroic Plus again. Would you ever put any thought into it of actually having harder content? Not even necessarily dungeons, could be raids or even scaled up raids from, like Karazhan. Scaling Karazhan up, it's really difficult to put into words because you don't want to ruin the flow of progression, gear progression in Cata. Like Clay said, it is actually really good. And the fact that when the new tier comes out, all the Valor gets converted back to Justice, and now you can buy all of that gear with Justice points. So, that's your catch-up mechanic in straight away. The fact that you can just spam 5-man random heroics and get the gear anyway from the vendor. So it would be more like prestigious items, like, with gold challenge modes. I didn't want to say gold challenge modes because everyone thinks the same thing, but, everybody loved gold challenge modes. So having more, like adding content, but without it necessarily having to give you player power.
Oh, we don't have any plans currently or anything to announce, but that's a really cool idea. Especially when there's chances to revisit some of the really amazing older content that we've had in WoW.
I'd love to see Karazhan at level 85. Just putting it out there. If you'd done that, you'd make my dreams come true. So
I love Karazhan too. It's one of my favorite things in WoW.
Mine too. Balancing and changing, changes in general. So, there's the big ones that everyone always focuses on in Wrath was the Rep Paladins and Feral Druids. But obviously there was far more than that that's happened in Wrath. Gargoyle snapshotting. Just as another example outside of actually adding things to the game. Can we expect quite a hands-on approach at trying to keep a little bit of balance, or at least help the classes that are really underperforming, like you've done in Wrath? Or are you quite happy with the way things are? Because I mean, I must admit, just in the beta testing I've been doing with an experienced group of people, it's quite clear what classes are going to get stacked already.
We've talked about the development process and how we develop these classic expansions at length as far back as 2017, 2018. We start with that final balance patch for Cataclysm. I think it was 4.3.2 was the final class balance patch that came out. Mm-hmm. we start from there, we work backwards, and it's interesting to see like that class balance exist in the pre-patch state that we've been existing in the lead up to Cataclysm, and how things work within that space. I would say generally we're happy with where we're starting from, but if you look at what we did with Wrath to try to make really targeted changes where we were hearing the greatest amounts of feedback, I would expect us to do something similar for Cataclysm as well. And there's been fantastic community discussion already, literally, entire YouTube videos and things like that focused solely on specific classes that I know you've done as well. Those are certainly insightful and help us see where the community is really focused on potential imbalance issues. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking for, and it is our desire to continue to make targeted class changes where it makes sense.
Okay, we've got a few minutes, so should we quick fire? You don't need to go into too much detail, just yes, no. Chaos Orbs, are they going to be bind on pickup?
We're going to be going, they will be bind on pickup, going back to how they initially were, and with the potential to adjust them throughout the milestones.
Awesome. Gathering XP, currently not working on the beta. Are we expecting that to work in 5 days' time?
Yes, it should actually be currently on the beta and on live.
Oh, okay. I tested it on the beta
yesterday.
I was going to say I tested it yesterday, so it's probably after I've actually tested it. Okay, cool. Yep. Disenchant button that was like originally put in Wrath, and we haven't had it, and I know that's like a bit of a some like it, some don't. Could we expect to see it in Cata?
We're looking into that and kind of discussing that right now.
Profession cooldowns. Any with the increased cadence, do we expect to see any profession cooldowns removed when they should be there, or reduced, or it's going to be how it was originally?
No plans to change that currently.
Dark Moon Fair. Now, Dark Moon Fair is not scheduled to start until after the raids open, and some of us really, really want our trinkets. Any chance of bringing Dark Moon Fair forward a week so we can get our trinkets before raid progress starts?
That is an awesome idea, and yes, we are talking about doing that. Having Dark Moon Fair come out, I guess would be the Sunday before, so you'll have some time leading into the raid in the first couple days of the raid.
That's a big win. That is a big, big win. I don't even want to talk anymore. We can leave it there. No, a couple more while we've got time. LFR, yes or no?
Not currently planning, no. Yeah. Oh, Clay, did you want to?
Nope, nothing else. You named it. Sorry, we're doing rapid fire. We're doing rapid fire.
Solo queue arenas.
Something, no plans right now.
But possibly, so it's not like an absolute no, just if there's enough demand for it.
There would have to be enough demand, and we prioritize that over the other things that we're working on. That's the trade-off that we're always looking at.
Right, okay. What about bringing back Zolaman and Zolgurub, like you did with Onyxia, where you speak to an NPC and you can do the original Onyxia? Any plans on that?
That's actually, we haven't really discussed that. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Something we could take back to the team for sure. That would be really cool to be able to do. But no, we don't have any plans for that now.
Well, I'm out of questions. Thank you. That was amazing. There was some, really, I mean, the Dark Moon Fair one, of all of that, I'm like, yes. I was praying that you was going to say, we'll be able to get our trinkets, because, that's pretty huge for some classes. So
yeah, we're excited about that too. It just seems to make sense with where we're at and everything. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. It's awesome. We're nearly there. The launch is right around the corner on Monday the 20th. It's I know I already talked about it earlier, but it's just been so exciting to see the enthusiasm and positivity really, really ramp up. Players just seem extremely excited as we are to be able to jump in there. So thank you for covering Cataclysm and for all the feedback to help us get ready.
Thanks for coming on and answering the questions, and hopefully maybe we get together later on in the phases at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Be awesome.
Cool.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you. Take care.